Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I am your host, John Herold, and got a good show lined up for you again today. I'm going to have Ash join us right away at the beginning, Ash in America, to discuss what's going on with SCOTUS. And so I'm going to get to our sponsors quick. We'll bring Ash on. We'll go through that, and then I have a whole bunch of other stories to go through. So first up, we have Rattlesnake Meats. Stop funding the cartel. I'm not talking about the cartels at the southern border. I'm talking about the four globalist multinational meat packers that control 85% of America's beef supply. Their beef, who knows where it's really raised. There's a better way. Buy directly from a real American rancher. At Rattlesnake Meat Company, they deliver premium 21-day aged American beef straight from the ranch to your door. No mRNA, no added hormones, no pink slime, no meat glue, just real beef born and raised in Kansas. Every dollar you spend is a vote. Vote for the American rancher. Vote against the globalist agenda. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/meat and use promo code Badlands20 for $20 off to take back control of your beef. That's badlandsmedia.tv/meat, promo code Badlands20, and tell the beef cartel, don't tread on me. And guys, their meat is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I would encourage you to at least try it once. Once you taste real authentic beef with none of the BS in there, it's kind of hard to go back to anything else. We have one more sponsor, Safe Streets. Now is the perfect time to secure your home and your loved ones. Get a free ADT smart home security system valued at $1,200 from ADT authorized provider Safe Streets, plus a Google Nest doorbell camera at no cost and a $200 Visa gift card from Safe Streets, the most trusted name in home security, with more than 106,000 4.9-star Trustpilot reviews. Visit getsafestreets.com/badlands or call 925-529-6541. That's 925-529-6541 to speak to a representative today. $99 customer installation charge and purchase of new monitoring service required for their termination fee to apply. I actually just got an email about them the other day. I'm going to be signing up for that. Even though I have a home security system, I want to sign up for it and try it. Because I got an email that the process is so slick and it's super, they're just all around great. So anyway, with that, let's bring on Ash. Ash, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Thanks for having me.
But what's going on with the SCOTUS stuff?
Oh, yeah. So there were 8 cases before SCOTUS for oral arguments this week, 5 oral arguments because several of the cases were combined. On Monday, we heard a couple of Louisiana cases that were combined, and this case has to do, or these arguments have to do with the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, specifically around gerrymandering of districts. And the arguments were really interesting. The key takeaways for me was, one, the Voting Rights Act is on its way out. I think that these cases, these 2 Louisiana cases, have the potential to gut it entirely because it's based on racial equity. It's intended to make things racially fair. So in this case in particular, the creation of a second black dominant district in Louisiana is the focus of the case. But the bigger takeaway for me was the arguments that everybody, all the justices, all the petitioners, nobody seemed to challenge that the drawing of districts can be done with an interest towards protecting incumbents. That blows my mind because they're also talking about, well, we have to make it racially fair because we need to make sure that the will of the people is equitable, but also we can draw these districts in a way to protect incumbents. And the specific example that they used was Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson. He is the Speaker of the House. They don't want to redraw his district in a way that threatens his incumbency. And my reaction to that is that those two priorities are at odds: the will of the voters versus protecting incumbents. If the will of the voters is to protect the incumbents, then that's what will happen. But that case was wild. Nobody challenges that they're just protecting incumbents.
That's crazy to me. So the people that are beneficiaries of the election system get to decide the boundaries of which that system elects them from.
Yeah, and the process varies a little bit from state to state in terms of how they gerrymander their districts. But yes, they get to draw the election rigging is in pretty much every single part of the process. But the mind-blowing part for me was that nobody challenged the idea of protecting incumbents. That's just something that they all accept.
Yeah, well, of course they do. That is pretty crazy. But you think that's going to lead to the Voting Rights Act going out the door?
So the Voting Rights Act is pretty much gutted already. Section 2 and Section 11 are the only parts that still have any teeth in them in the law. Section 11 is the section of the Voting Rights Act that I was sued under that we're litigating in the 10th Circuit right now, and that has to do with voter intimidation. Section 2 has to do with gerrymandering and specifically the race-based jurisprudence over the drawing of congressional districts. I would be surprised if the petitioners are successful in that case, and the state of Louisiana is not. But again, apparently, just keeping the districts drawn to protect the incumbents, the people they really like, in the House, the most representative body. That seems to be just an accepted thing that we do.
Yeah. Real quick before we go to the next one, I just wanted to. This is a story I was going to bring up later. But Democrats hold Pennsylvania State House with special election win. Democrats have won 5 straight special elections this year. That blows my mind with the mandate that we are told that we have. How is that even possible?
Well, I think it's election rigging. I think that's a 15-point district, the latest one that they flipped, and they didn't hold. So this maybe hold, but yesterday they flipped I think it was a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania. And Scott Pressler's out there blaming a lack of early voting as the reason for why. But
maybe Scott should have registered more voters, Ash.
Well, he bailed and went to Wisconsin. And apparently the strength of the Republic lies on the shoulders of Scott Pressler, apparently. So.
Helpless.
I know, right? The second case that we heard on Monday was Riley versus Bondi, and this is a deportation case. So it's about if a person has a final deportation or order, the provision in the statute is that they have 30 days to make what's called a CAT claim. And a CAT claim is Convention Against Torture. So the idea there is, you're saying my final detention order says that you're going to remove me to this super horrible, very scary country, and I'll be tortured if I go there. So you need to let me stay. You need to let me stay, or send me somewhere else. The man's name is Pierre Riley. He's set to be deported to Jamaica. And he made his CAT claim after the 30-day deadline had expired. So the question that they were examining is the 30 days really all that important? Or if someone says that they're going to be tortured, can they make that claim at any time before they're deported? That was wild.
Who's doing the torturing?
I don't know. The Rastafarians? I don't know. Bob Marley's ghost. I don't know. And it could be that, he's set to be deported, but he was going to be rerouted to El Salvador. It didn't come up in that way. The claim was he claimed Convention Against Torture in his final removal order to be sent to
Do you think
Jamaica.
That one will hold?
So this comes down to a very specific provision in the law. There's the statute says you have 30 days. We heard the leftist judges questioning whether a final deportation order is actually final, or if it can't be final until after they've made their torture claim, and then arguing at the same time that the 30 days doesn't actually matter, that you can waive that or forfeit it. So it'll be interesting, but it's a very important case in terms of these broader deportation arguments. The outcome of this one, which has urgency to it, the outcome of this one may impact some of those other cases.
The alien enemy one.
Yep, exactly. Then yesterday there were two oral arguments for 3 EPA cases, and these are really interesting because they deal with venue manipulation, all 3 of them. So the first case was about small oil refineries and whether or not their cases about environmental issues with the EPA, whether they can be brought locally in the areas where the oil refineries are, in the local or regional, and or if they should always be brought in the DC District Court. And then the second case was about air quality. It was two cases combined. We covered that one this morning on Badlands Live. And it's, air quality is different than refineries because air quality travels over state lines. Does it become a matter of national interest? That was the question that they were debating this morning. It's
And
it's
SCOTUS, it's up to SCOTUS to determine that?
it's up to SCOTUS to determine whether or not the government can always bring their case in the DC District Court. At one point in these arguments, Justice Gorsuch said, "I get it. The government always wants to win, and you know that if you bring a case in the DC District Court, your chances to win go up exponentially." I think this one's particularly interesting because we have the questions, and there's a bunch of this in the Badlands news brief today, badlands.substack.com. There are a lot of questions around federal judges. There are people freaking out like crazy today because Mike Johnson said they might impeach federal judges, but they're skipping over the fact that he said we have the jurisdiction to abolish or alter these courts, and they do. The federal district courts are created by an act of Congress, and they can be
Could you
changed.
imagine?
I'm here for it.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah.
Abolish the district court.
Yeah, the DC District Court for sure. And this is something that the anti-federalists warned about, that if you have a DC, first of all, just if you have a DC anyway, right, like a separate capital district that's not beholden to any state, you run the risk of, and I'm paraphrasing, but you run the risk of it sucking up all the oxygen and becoming the supreme being. When you add courts to that, they become the authority on everything, and your separation of powers, your co-equal branches don't really matter if you have judicial supremacy.
The chat is also in favor of getting rid of the DC courts. So,
well, yeah. And when it comes to criminal matters, so this was about the EPA, but if you think about the DC District Court from criminal matters, Brian and I were on Badlands Book Club last night reading chapter 3 from Kash Patel's Government Gangsters.
Yeah.
And the government always wants to bring these cases in the DC District, which votes 92% Democrat. So there are a lot of questions around the DC District Court and the authorities and powers given by Congress, not the Constitution, but by Congress to these district courts. I think we're going to see some change there, and I'm definitely here for it.
Did you see Mike Lee's bill yesterday, where he proposed like a 3-judge panel to oversee these cases where people are bringing cases against the administration? Do you have any thoughts on that?
My kind of, immediate reaction is that sounds like a new court we're adding, and I don't know that that's the answer. I would think we should reform what we have and put as I've said many times, I think we need to put the branches back in their constitutional boxes and stop letting them play outside of those lines. I don't think we need new courts. Think we need to reform the courts we have and maybe abolish some of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So the last one that is being heard today, it's a combination, 2 cases being combined. And the reason, the only real difference between them is the entity that's the authority of the entity that's being challenged. These have to do with the Federal Communications Commission and their constitutional the telecommunications providers' constitutionally mandated contributions. They are apparently using third parties to manage the subsidies that go out to all of the states. So if you think about the public-private partnerships and how government generally uses other entities to execute part of its authority, these are being challenged in 2 cases. The questions are focused on the non-delegation doctrines and whether Congress and the entities that it's appropriating to and giving authorities to can then subcontract those authorities out to third parties. I haven't heard the arguments on this one. They happened while I was on Daily, and we'll be covering them this afternoon on Badlands Live. But I think this one as well has a chance to go at the heart of the administrative state and the way that the administrative state functions with kind of this public-private partnership where the non-governmental entities are acting as an arm of the government without the oversight and ability to kind of regulate as a government entity.
That's an interesting point, an interesting discussion that I think we should probably be having more often, because if we're trying to limit government and make it smaller, some of the things that the government does in our life, maybe it's not even necessary and we just get rid of it altogether, but some of the stuff will have to be picked up by private entities. And so do we create more oversight for that? Like what is the solution here? Do we not have the private partnerships? I think that's something we should probably be talking about more often.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Abs and I talk about it a good amount on culture of change. But if you get rid of the private entities and the roles that they're playing, you're going to have a massive government. I think that there should be different rules. There should definitely be oversight. Right now, the public-private partnerships in government, the government gives elections are a great example of this. The government gives authorities to third parties, whether it's NGOs or private corporations. In the case of the border, there's a lot of NGO work that's operating under HHS to move migrants. Right, Catholic Charities comes to mind. In elections, you have election vendors that are executing the statutory authorities of the states and localities as it pertains to elections. Right now, those authorities are just given and there's not oversight. We have fake oversight, right? We have the voting system testing labs and the EAC that really rubber stamp any question about whether the voting system testing lab should have certified a specific voting machine are tossed out or told that that's conspiracy theories, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no oversight. There's really no oversight when it comes to private entities within our elections ecosystem. That has to change.
Yeah,
our elections are owned by corporations effectively because they own the code.
Yep. And we're going to get into the election executive order here later on the show.
Good one.
But before I let you go here, Ash, I just want your comment. Did we ever see this hearing from Una Panuna Banca?
No, and I don't think it's ever been scheduled. It wasn't. I haven't checked this morning, but as of last night, it was not scheduled. She's always said it was going to be on March 26th. And Jessica and I look at the schedule every single day, every single weekday at least, because we're planning Badlands live coverage. We've never seen it actually on the schedule. I asked the question and then started tagging like oversight and James Comer. Nobody responded to me, but it just I don't know. Maybe it'll still happen and it's just not on the schedule. And if it does, we'll cover it on Badlands Live. But yeah, weird that it's not on the schedule. And it's frustrating to me when things aren't on the schedule because we want to cover them. We want to bring you all the hearings and all of the things when they happen. But if they're not scheduled, then it's harder for us to do that.
It's more frustrating to me, not even the schedule part. I understand why that's frustrating, but it's frustrating to me when we have congresswomen creating fake committees just to be social media influencers and ride the coattails of a D-class effort she had no part in. So yeah. That's what frustrates me anyway.
I agree.
Anna Polina Luna, if you're watching, you are welcome to join the show and defend your committee because I hate it.
I think you invoked her name twice and you have to play the clip.
I don't even think I have it loaded. Well, I can play it from this video. Hold on. It just funny. I had somebody on Twitter respond. It's like, what does that even mean? Who is that? It's like you don't watch regularly.
You don't watch Badlands. We all know exactly what that means.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ash. Appreciate you. I'll make sure I send people over to Badlands Live after we're done here. So
awesome. Thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. All right. So that was good. There's so many SCOTUS stuff going on, and there's only going to be more with all these challenges to Trump and what his admin is doing. So with her knowledge base on all this stuff, we're going to have her on more often. Also, the guest we had yesterday, Gabrielle Cuchilla, she was great. I think she's going to be a regular guest. Like I'm trying to get her to do a regular weekly spot that fits her schedule. So she's just a wealth of knowledge, and it's nice to have somebody at the Pentagon on the ground getting involved. If you missed yesterday's episode, I'd encourage you to go check that out. So right now, the White House is holding a briefing. So I understand if viewership's probably a little low right now, conflicting with this one. But yeah, this story that I brought up with Ash, it's crazy to me that with the mandate that we have lost 5 straight special elections, including flipping some seats. And yeah, Scott Pressler is not taking any blame. He can't do it all himself. He says it's everybody else's fault. Just interesting. But again, Trump has promised to fix our elections, and we finally saw movement with an executive order yesterday, which we're going to get to here very shortly. The other Supreme Court decision that came down, this wasn't argued. This was actually a decision that came down. Thought it was kind of interesting. Supreme Court upholds rules requiring background checks for ghost guns. The Supreme Court on Wednesday upheld Biden-era federal regulations on ghost guns, mail-order kits that allow people to build untraceable weapons at home, handing gun control groups a rare win at the conservative high court. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the opinion for a 7-2 majority that included both liberal and conservative justices in one of the most closely watched Supreme Court cases of the year. Perhaps a half hour of work is required before anyone can fire a shot, Gorsuch wrote. But even as sold, the kit comes with all necessary components, and its intended function as instrument of combat is obvious. Really, the kit's name says it all: buy, build, shoot. So it's not clear how Trump is going to respond to this, because he did sign an order back on February 7th requiring the Attorney General to review gun regulations that were imposed during the Biden administration. And I don't know if they change any of those and how it would affect this, but as of now, this is passed. I don't know anybody that does the ghost gun thing, though. I mean, I've heard of people doing it. I don't know anybody personally. So I'm curious if it's really that easy. You just like get the gun, build it, and all of a sudden you have a gun that you didn't have to register for and still shoots the same, all those things. But anyway, this is the biggie from yesterday. Trump issued a slew of orders. I could probably even show you guys here on the website. Give me a second to pull this up. So we'll do all the presidential actions. This is everything he did. We talked about the Devon Archer thing yesterday. He got a pardon or clemency. Thought that's interesting. I wonder if we're going to see movement on the Biden scandal stuff, especially considering the auto pen situation. We also have this: addressing risks from Jenner and Block. It's very similar to the Paul Weiss thing. These law firms, I think they're the ones who had Paul Weissman work there, who have been working against Trump for 8 years, essentially. So I'm curious if they put this order out, if they're going to get them to bend the knee too, just like they did Paul Weiss, but we shall see. And then the biggies here are preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections and declassification of Crossfire Hurricane. We'll also probably talk briefly about this America's Bank account, but let's start with the most important one. And as I've been saying for 3-4 years, however long I've been doing this, the number one issue in America is our fraudulent election system. And if we don't fix that, it doesn't matter what progress we make, it's going to end up slowly going back to the way it was. This is an opportunity with Trump in office to address this situation and fix it. The reason this is the number one issue is because of all the things that are downstream from our elections, all the things that our super bloated government has control over because they get fraudulently elected into office. And actually, in the coming weeks, I'm going to have a couple congressmen that have agreed to come on the show, which is crazy. I think next week we'll have one. We might even have one this week. No, I think they're next week, or one hasn't been scheduled yet. But I'm going to ask these people about it because I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be blunt about it. I believe everybody in our government has been fraudulently elected because we have a fraudulent election system. And as beneficiaries of that system, what are you doing to fix it? What are you going to do to fix it? Because an executive order can only go so far. You still need Congress at some point to make it a law. And we especially need these changes made at the local level. What Trump is doing with this executive order is good. It's interesting. It's a first step. But as Chris Paul pointed out yesterday, and something we're going to talk on the Power tonight, and probably Saturday, it needs to be done at the local level. And it needs to be us who demand it and force it through. But I'm going to read a pretty decent chunk of this because it's good stuff. Despite pioneering self-government, the United States now fails to enforce basic and necessary election protections employed by modern developed nations as well as those still developing. India and Brazil, for example, are tying voter identification to a biometric database, while the United States largely relies on self-attestation for citizenship. In tabulating votes, Germany and Canada require use of paper ballots counted in public by local officials, which substantially reduces the number of disputes as compared to the American patchwork of voting methods that can lead to basic chain of custody problems. Further, while countries like Denmark and Sweden sensibly limit mail-in voting to those unable to vote in person and do not count late arriving votes regardless of the date of the postmark, many American elections now feature mass voting by mail, with many officials accepting ballots without postmarks or those received well after Election Day. Free, fair, and honest elections, unmarred by fraud, errors, or suspicion, are fundamental to maintaining our constitutional republic. Amen. The right of American citizens to have their votes properly counted and tabulated without illegal dilution is vital to determining the rightful winner of an election. Under the Constitution, state governments must safeguard American elections in compliance with federal laws that protect Americans' voting rights and guard against dilution by illegal voting, discrimination, fraud, and other forms of malfeasance and error. If the United States has not adequately enforced federal election requirements that, for example, prohibit states from counting ballots received after Election Day or prohibit non-citizens from registering to vote. And then it goes into some law stuff. I'll probably skip that one. States fail adequately to vet voter citizenship. Foreign nationals and non-governmental organizations have taken advantage of loopholes in the law's interpretation, spending millions of dollars through conduit contributions and ballot initiative-related expenditures. Above all, elections must be honest and worthy of public trust. That requires voting methods that produce a voter-verifiable paper record, allowing voters to efficiently check their votes to protect against fraud or mistake. Election integrity standards must be modified accordingly. It's the policy of my administration to enforce federal law and protect the integrity of our election process. And there's so many things that are like going through my head when I'm just reading this, and the fact that this even came out, because leading up to the election, and also, side note, we're going to talk a lot about this on the Power Hour tonight because of, I'm trying to get Chris Paul to come on. And if not, we'll talk about it with him on Saturday. But Chris Paul has gotten a lot of flack, and Badlands has too, but not to the extent that Chris Paul has, for speaking out about our elections and his approach to information generally. It's very principled, and he doesn't waver from those principles. And even when Trump won the election, there was some fallout because we're like, yeah, it's great he won, but we can't allow this to be the reason that our elections are just fine again. That was our concern. And Trump echoed that sentiment multiple times, multiple interviews. He called out how fake, like, our elections are fake. It's fraudulent if you believe the numbers, all these things. The enemy wants us to go back to the same system, the status quo. The best case scenario for them is to us to just like squabble over election stuff and election integrity, but never actually do it. And they keep the status quo and keep us enslaved forever. The only way we break out of this, I mean, maybe not the only way. You could, there's lots of ways we can break out of this. But again, the most important thing to me, in my opinion, is fixing actually fixing it, not just an executive order, addressing it, because Trump did sign an executive order in his first term, also looking into a lot of these things. This one's much more detailed, which is great. But his first term executive order, he ended up withdrawing it, disbanding the committee, because liberal states, blue states, all these liberal attorney generals, they fought him, and they couldn't get the information they required. So it'll be interesting to see if this is fought, how this is fought, but most importantly, how this is implemented at the local level. And some of the things I'll show you in here, especially with the purse strings and the funding, potentially withholding funding from states who are non-compliant. That's one way to get this done. And then enforcing laws, obviously. So number one, or section 2, enforcing the citizenship requirement for federal elections. This is a no-brainer. You should provide proof that you're a citizen in this country and in the state that you live in order to vote in that state's elections. That is a no-brainer. It's ridiculous we even have to have this conversation and talk about it. But obviously, you need to be a United States citizen, a legal one, in the state you live in to vote in that election. Crazy. But anyway, they go through all these things to prove it, and how they're going to implement that. This one was interesting. Department of Homeland Security, in coordination with the DOJ administrator, shall review each state's publicly available voter registration list and available records concerning voter list maintenance activities. So DOJ getting involved, I think that's a big deal. That's notable. DOJ seems to be doing a good job. We're told DOJ is doing a good job. We haven't seen how the sausage is made or anything, but I think this is a good step. Probably. Section 3, providing other assistance to states verifying eligibility. I don't see any issue with that. A lot of this has to do with the government and all the files they have on people, but they're in different places. It's very compartmented. And I think merging of some of the databases is what this is referring to. Like they have, it says here, social security number verification service, death master file, and any other federal databases containing relevant information, and talking about sharing that stuff. And so that people, they can't verify somebody who's voted multiple times. They can't verify somebody who voted is alive. There's so many issues with our voting system. And a lot of it has to do with the voter rolls and the registration process. So they're addressing that. Improving the Election Assistance Commission. I wish they would just disband this thing completely, but is what it is. They're going to take all appropriate action to cease providing federal funds to states that do not comply with federal laws set forth in 52C 21145, including the requirement that states accept and use the National Mail Voter Registration Form, including any requirement for documentary proof of United States citizenship adopted pursuant to Section 2A2 of this order. The Election Assistance Commission shall initiate appropriate action to amend the voluntary voting system guidelines and issue other appropriate guidance establishing standards for voting systems to protect election integrity. This is, I think, is a biggie and kind of going under the radar. The amended guidelines and other guidance shall provide that voting systems should not use a ballot in which a vote is contained within a barcode or quick response code in the vote counting process, except where necessary to accommodate individuals with disabilities, and should provide a voter verifiable paper record to prevent fraud or waste. So no longer will you go in there on the little iPad, pick your stuff, and then get a barcode, which you can't even verify on the barcode who you voted for, and then take that barcode to a separate machine where they scan it and tell you that you voted, and you have no way of knowing if they just use that barcode to switch your votes. You have no way of knowing or confirming any of it. You no longer can use barcodes, according to this. And then it goes further. The EAC shall take appropriate action and review, if appropriate, and recertify voting systems under the new standards. So if the new standard is you can't use barcodes, the machines need to be recertified in order to be used in an election. They're not going to recertify them if they're not meeting the standard, which is no barcodes. So I think that's a great step. Section 5 here, prosecuting election crimes. Love it. I think if people commit crimes, they should be prosecuted. That's a no-brainer. But the DOJ Attorney General, they're going to take all appropriate action to reinforce, first of all, enter info sharing agreements, but then reinforce that if you're committing a crime, like registering to vote despite being ineligible or voting multiple times, committing election fraud, providing false information on voter registration or other election forms, intimidated or threatened voters or election officials, otherwise engaged in unlawful conduct to interfere in the election process, you're going to prison, straight to jail. Section 6, improving security of voting systems. This is a big one too. To improve the security of all voting equipment and systems used to cast ballots, tabulate votes, and report results. And this goes through a lot of the electronic stuff, but it talks about preventing all non-citizens from being involved in the administration of any federal election. That's a biggie, including by accessing election equipment, ballots, or any other relevant materials used in the conduct of any federal election. So think of all these voting machine companies. And you know what? I'm gonna take a step back here. I'm gonna read. I missed a part. I'm gonna read something quick, and then I'll talk on this. The Attorney General and Secretary of Homeland Security shall take all appropriate actions, so long as the Department of Homeland Security maintains the designation of election infrastructure as critical infrastructure, which again was done by Jay Johnson in January of 2017. It was Obama's Director of Homeland Security who made that switch, that designation. So election infrastructure is considered critical infrastructure. This is saying as long as that is maintained, that they will prevent all non-citizens from being involved in the administration of any federal election, including by accessing election equipment, ballots, or any other relevant materials used in the conduct of any federal election. If you think back to Trump's December 16th of 2020, there was that draft memo that it never got signed, never got issued. But in there, he details out like, hey, it was a draft executive order. Hey, look at all these ties of these election machines to foreign countries and who owns them and all these things. And again, it came out in the January 6th stuff. He never signed it, but it was interesting insight. And there's documented proof that a lot of these election machine companies, election-related companies, are tied to foreign companies. This executive order, if it's carried out and carried through, will prevent all non-citizens from being involved in the administration of any federal election. Does that mean if a foreign country owns a voting machine? Like if a foreign country owns a voting machine company, are we no longer going to be using those voting machines in our elections because a non-citizen, that would be involving a non-citizen in the administration of our elections? So that's where my thought process goes with this one, why I think it's interesting. They're going to review and report on the security of all electronic systems used in the voter registration and voting process. They shall assess the security of all such systems to the extent they are connected to or integrated into the internet and report on the risk of such systems being compromised through malicious software and unauthorized intrusions into the system. Love it. To achieve full compliance with federal laws that set the uniform day for appointing presidential electors and electing members of Congress, they need to comply with the election day. It's great. Preventing foreign interference and unlawful use of federal funds. This is an interesting one too, because they are trying to prevent foreign nationals from contributing or donating to people in the United States elections. And it's going to prevent lobbying by organizations or entities. I think this is great. getting foreign dollars out of our elections, and how much of those foreign dollars were our tax dollars in the first place that we sent overseas as aid, which is just coming right back into our election system. The Act Blue stuff, the Win Red is probably no better. But yeah, this is the executive order. Very interesting. I'm excited to see where this goes. Eleanor 2000 in the chat. So on X, I'm seeing this and re-X'd John and Ash that the Signal incident was most likely a setup. American oversight is David Brock and Normeisen. Crew was lawfare. I'm going to comment on that story at the end. Give a little insight. We have like 23 minutes left, and I have so much to go through. So I'm going to start cruising. Protecting America's bank account against waste, fraud, waste, and abuse. This thing goes into how much money. You know what? I might even have a clip on this. Yeah, right here.
We have an executive order for your attention relating actually to government payments. Historically, checks issued by the Treasury are, I believe, 14 times more likely to become the subject of fraud than electronic transfer payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible, they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
It's basically modernization of equipment and methods, and it's something that really I think he's going to be a great Secretary of the Treasury, wanted Scott, and so we're doing this, and we have other modernization programs.
Yeah, so this is great. They're going to modernize the Treasury and how we do payments. I think they're going to try to get rid of all paper checks from the Fed or the Treasury, and go fully ACH, because that alone will save us like hundreds of millions of dollars, something crazy. So yeah, that's I like it. It's efficiency. It's going to save us money. Good with that. This is another biggie from yesterday. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and most of them we'll probably talk about on the Power Hour tonight. But just to show you, immediate declassification of materials related to the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Except as provided below, I've determined that all of the materials referenced in the presidential memorandum of January 19, 2021, declassification of certain materials related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation, are no longer classified. I have further determined that the material proposed for redaction by the FBI in a cover letter dated January 17th of 2021 remains classified. My decision to declassify the materials described above does not extend to materials that must be protected from disclosure, blah, 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 blah. So he's again declassifying these documents. And the reason I say again is because the day before leaving office, way back when, January 19th, he issued this memorandum. Same thing. Declassification of certain materials related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Where I'm really curious is how this, and whenever we get this stuff, we'll obviously go through it. It's probably going to be pretty revealing, going to be pretty damning, we expect, for a lot of people in the former administration, Obama and the Biden administrations. But where my mind goes is, how does this tie to the Mar-a-Lago raid? Because there's speculation and rumors that they raided Mar-a-Lago to get these files. But then on top of that, in conjunction with that, there's this story that came out from CNN where they talked about the missing binder, how a collection of raw Russian intelligence disappeared under Trump. And this whole story, it's providing cover for these missing files. Was it providing cover that they destroyed them and like, hey, it's missing, let's try to blame Trump? What actually happened to this stuff? We never got a resolution from this story, which I think is interesting. So we're going to talk about this more tonight. This is a biggie. I'm excited about it, but we have so much more to get through here. So I'm going to keep trucking. Make sure you guys watch Power Hour tonight, guys. Watchdog sues Trump officials. You know what? I'm gonna save that story for the end because I do want to comment on that, but I'm not ready quite yet. Let's instead go to this one. Trump is freezing $120 million to Planned Parenthood. $120 million in grants. The Trump administration plans to freeze approximately $120 million in federal grants to Planned Parenthood this year. The Wall Street Journal reported the funds will be held while officials review whether any of the money was used for DEI initiatives, with an announcement expected within days. In 2023, Planned Parenthood reported performing 392,715 abortions. Insane. And that's just part of its 9.13 million total services, while serving over 2 million patients. Oh, it blows my mind. We already got this. Talked about the declassification of Crossfire Hurricane, so we can skip that one. RNC is making some efforts to clean up voter rolls. RNC pushes for voter roll transparency nationwide records request. I have a feeling this is not going to, they're not going to get what they want. And I'll tell you why in a second. RNC officials said the effort aims to ensure that only eligible voters remain registered. The party is specifically requesting records on how states remove ineligible voters, including non-citizens, criminals, and deceased individuals. The reason I'm skeptical this will work, or at least fully work, because why does it matter if we only get the red states that do it? A lot of the fraud is, I mean, the fraud's done everywhere, but a lot of it's done in the blue states. Back in 2017, when Trump issued or created that committee to examine how our elections are run, Federal Commission on Election Integrity or whatever, chaired by Mike Pence, they tried to do this. They tried to get information from every single state. And over half the states fought back and pushed back and said, no, we're not doing it. We're not giving you any of our information. And that was a presidential committee established by executive order. This is just the RNC. I can't imagine they're going to have any more pull than the president did, especially with these rogue judges. So I don't anticipate them getting all the data, but we'll see. See what happens. We got this. Trump's son's crypto firm launches stablecoin as GOP pushes new regulations. World Liberty Financial, the cryptocurrency venture founded by Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, announced they're launching a new digital token, USD1, a stablecoin pegged to the US dollar. And the thing that I found interesting here is Zach Witkoff is a co-founder, and it's his dad, who is Steve Witkoff, who's the special envoy to the Middle East. I didn't realize there's that kind of family overlap going on. It's just something notable. I'm not saying anything nefarious, but notable. The U.S. has blacklisted dozens of Chinese tech firms in the first crackdown under Trump. They have added, let me see here, the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security placed 80 organizations, including more than 50 from China, on its entity list, barring American firms from supplying them without government approval. The blacklisted companies were accused of acting against U.S. national security and foreign policy interests, particularly in areas such as exascale computing, quantum technologies, and AI-driven military applications. So cracking down on China. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I thought this was just a weird story, so I just wanted to show it. Florida debates lifting some child labor laws to fill jobs vacated by undocumented immigrants. Florida's been working for years to crack down on employers that hire undocumented immigrants. But what they're doing now with the crackdown is the state legislature advanced a bill that would loosen child labor laws, allowing children as young as 14 years old to work overnight shifts. The new laws passed, teenagers will be able to work overnight jobs on school days. They're currently prevented from working earlier than 6:30 a.m. or later than 11 p.m. I don't even know how I feel about that. Like, I can't imagine my kids being that age, or even myself being that age and wanting to work overnight. So I don't know. I don't know the benefit of this. Mystic Yak in the chat says John is not critical enough. I'm curious what you mean by that. Oh, is the Trump family beating the crypto industry? Yeah, I mean, it's up to everybody to do what they want. They're capitalists. They're trying to capitalize off the crypto industry. I support capitalism, but I haven't bought a single world digital financial coin or whatever, participated in anything they're doing. I did buy an NFT once, way back when, a couple of them. But if you're critical for it, advocate against it, and don't support it. That's totally fine. Right now, I don't see any blurred lines like with what they're doing and what the government's doing. If that line ever does get blurred, then yeah, then I'll be much more critical of it. I don't see that being a concern right now. There was rumors that Trump was going to be like backing down from his reciprocal tariff stuff. In an interview he did on Newsmax yesterday, he said, "I'll probably be more lenient than reciprocal because if I was reciprocal, that would be very tough for people." But the White House pushed back and said that that's not true. He's still doing reciprocal. The next round of tariffs, it's still starting April 2nd. I think it's narrower in scope than people thought it would be. Only like 15% of countries or something. But yeah, so just wanted to point that out. Let's keep going here. Oh, Republicans are moving to censure Jasmine Crockett over her Hot Wheels remark, because the other day she called Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels during a human rights gala. I mean, definitely insensitive. I get it. But at the same time, I know I've made a joke about Governor Abbott too. But I guess they can't censure me, so different strokes for different folks. Here's Trump saying he would be interested in defunding NPR and PBS, or at least taking away their tax dollars. I would love to do that. I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased. The whole group, the kind of money that's being wasted, and it's a very biased view. So I see no issue with that. Trump also revealed that Greg Kelly just revealed to President Trump that the DOJ is still in court fighting against Ashley Babbitt's wrongful death lawsuit, and President Trump immediately promised to step in. This is from B. Hizzy, by the way. Kelly says, I don't know if you know this. The family of Ashley Babbitt is suing the government for wrongful death. The DOJ right now is officially still opposing that lawsuit, trying to justify it. Shouldn't that be something that can just be settled at this point? Trump said, well, I'll look into that. I mean, you're just telling me that for the first time. I haven't heard that. I'm a big fan of Ashley Babbitt. Curious to see why Trump didn't know about this, why the DOJ is still fighting it. It's just an interesting situation all around, and something I haven't even talked about that much. So curious to see the resolution of that. I thought this was interesting from Zero Hedge. They say the recession has been canceled again. U.S. durable goods orders back near record highs in February. After the surprising 3.2% month-over-month surge in January, U.S. durable goods orders were expected to slide in preliminary February data. However, in yet another recession-imminent narrative crushing hard data point, orders rose 0.9% month-over-month, and January was revised up from 3.2 to 3.3. So the recession, which I think by definition we'll still get the recession. I just don't think it's going to be bad as people think. Anyway, Grok is now available on Telegram. So that's interesting. I like Telegram the most right now for the search function anyway. And so throwing Grok in the mix, that could be interesting. I'm going to play around with that a little bit, but you guys got to beware. Grok, especially, I haven't played around with the other AIs as much as I have Grok just because of convenience, but Grok still definitely pushes the establishment narrative on a lot of things. I've caught it multiple times. Pretty much every time I ask it a question that I know typically comes with an establishment answer, like, hey, did the Bidens directly interfere in the election with the laptop story? It'll say no. There's no ties to the 51 intelligence agency story and the Biden administration. It's like, oh, well, didn't you see Antony Blinken and what he said? Because he definitely is the one who kicked that whole thing off. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I missed that. How did I forget? So it pushes establishment. Anyway, I'm on a tangent now. We get back to what I want to talk about. Bolsonaro is facing trial over alleged coup plot. A majority of a panel of justices of Brazil's Supreme Court has accepted charges against former President Jair Bolsonaro over an alleged attempt to stay in office after his 2022 election defeat. Very similar to what Trump was up against. Same thing going on down there. So just curious to see how that plays out. Thought this was crazy. The secret CIA files claim Ark of the Covenant has been found. What? It was discovered in 1988 through secret agency tests. Documents originate from the Project Sunstreak and the Shadow of Ezra. I kind of think it's a shill, but I've seen this out there from a lot of people. So this is the first one I saw. I'm going to read it. The document originates from Project Sunstreak, a remote viewing program in which a psychic described a coffin-shaped object made of wood, gold, and silver, adorned with a six-winged angel. The object was supposedly buried underground in the Middle East, possibly Ethiopia, and guarded by entities capable of destroying intruders. So they found it. They had somebody remote view, which is like, they didn't go physically find it. They went there in their head and found it. Here's Trump pushing back against Caitlin Collins, which you gotta love.
That information was not classified. Which of your national security advisors
Just
told you
following
that?
up on your comments on the economy,
Just
there is
straight up ignores her. He was like doing that the whole day yesterday. It's so funny. Yesterday, I showed you in Colorado, there was a lady in Congress or whatever, state legislature, who was coloring, not even real coloring, fake coloring. Well, we have more. We have TikTokers. We have other game players. They're debating like a gun control bill there. And this is how the people there are participating.
That means that it would form the base amount for future consideration such that this body may never actually know in detail without looking specifically at this line item, how much is being.
They're all like on their phone, none of them paying attention while they're debating this stuff. Like, what's the point of it? They all clearly already made up their mind. Why even have the debate? So stupid. All right. think I'm going to get into I'm going to close the show out with some thoughts I have on this whole Signal app thing that I've seen the past few days. Okay. So first, let me share this story. And this is from, it's on the Badlands website. I think the original story is from Axios and ABC News. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other Trump administration officials are facing a lawsuit from the government watchdog group American Oversight for using Signal to discuss military plans to strike Houthi targets in Yemen. The lawsuit alleges that the conversation, which mistakenly included the Atlantic's editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, violated federal records laws by taking place on an unclassified commercial app. Filed in D.C. federal court, the suit names Hegseth along with National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, all these things. So you're all very familiar by now with this Signal story that's going on. Okay, the journalist was included. There were more texts that came out from Goldberg. Let me see if I can find that. I had that up here somewhere too. I know I did. Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. Okay, is that on the screen? Okay, so yeah, there's more text that got leaked from Goldberg. So after the White House and them came out and denied certain things about it, they released more. And this is kind of the biggie one from Hegseth here with times, the planes they're using, strike drones, MQ-9s, like a lot of stuff in here. Okay, whether this is considered classified info, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but what I am seeing is a certain behavior pattern from our community, like the people in the movement, and it's a behavior pattern that I've done as well. So I'm not trying to say that I'm different or better, but it took me seeing it in other people to recognize it in myself as well, and it's something that I think we all need to do better at. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. There's this post from Charlie Kirk. And I'm not picking on Charlie Kirk because this is a behavior I do as well. It's just a really good example of what I'm going to talk about. Charlie Kirk, what's worse? Accidentally adding a journalist to your Houthi strike chat or pushing fake intelligence to justify invading Iraq and getting 5,000 American troops killed for nothing? What's worse? The Signal group chat or lying about making progress in Afghanistan while we spent $1 trillion to achieve absolutely nothing when botching the evacuation so that we lost billions in equipment and 13 American soldier lives? What's worse, a Signal chat or letting millions of foreigners over the border than sheltering criminals and gang members in flagrant defiance of federal law? You are being subjected to propaganda. The people who led America into one disaster after another are trying to convince you a relatively mild embarrassment is the worst scandal ever. Okay? So I've been thinking about this ever since I saw it last night. And well, I'm still kind of playing the 72-hour rule with the story itself, the information that's coming out of it, because I don't think we know all the details. And whatever details we do have on it, it's come from Goldberg, right? Because the administration is kind of talking. I mean, they're playing politics. They're talking about, I don't think so. I don't know. You'll have to refer to the White House, all these things. They've confirmed it's genuine, though, that it happened. And so, again, I'm not trying to pick on Charlie Kirk, because I do the same thing. But Charlie's post, what he's doing here is whataboutism. It's downplaying the Signal chat and like pointing to these other things that previous administrations have done. And that's like great for social media clicks. It is. Playing the what's worse game is great for social media clips, but it's a moral cop-out. That's what that is. Like, we can look at both these situations and say they're both bad. They both shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't be shrugging off one just because the other one is worse or because the other one was done by a party that we don't align with. And if what we're being told about this chat leak is true, this mistake, it could have risked national security, and it shouldn't have happened. And by the way, like the transparency we keep talking about from this administration, again, administration being separate from Trump himself, we keep talking about this is the most transparent administration in history. They're not being very transparent about what happened with this, if we're being totally honest. But these people that are in this chat group, that are in the administration, they're in positions of power, and they have great responsibility with that power. That should be like in a movie or something, that quote. With great power comes great responsibility. Like, they're to be trusted. They have a duty to protect sensitive information. And even if it was an accident, they still breach that duty. You know what I mean? And when we play like what's worse with stuff like this, something that it's wrong and it shouldn't have happened, we're undermining the responsibility and accountability that we have been demanding for years. Like we want justice, we want accountability, we want these people to be held responsible. But oh wait, not when our side does it. Even if it's not as bad. And like if we're going to play whataboutism as well, this is another thing. And we're gonna like let a wrong go. Like we're gonna forgive this away because what they did was worse. When does that stop? Especially when the people that we are using as the control group, like the people we're comparing against, is the modern left, who has zero moral compass and people we look at as basically evil. Like when that's the control group, there is so much short of that we can forgive away. Well, doing like whataboutism in today's political climate, it just perpetuates the cycle of failure. It doesn't actually fix any of the problems we have. It doesn't call for fixing any of the problems that we have. If we're going to espouse America first principles, like as a country, that means we have to apply them to every situation equally. We can't compare the situations to other situations. We compare the situations to the America first principles that we want. We can't only demand justice from people on the other side of the aisle. It shouldn't be about politics at all. It should be about the integrity of the system and the country. And again, we don't know the full details of this. I get it. But based on what we do know, it shouldn't have happened. And it's still not okay. And there should be some form of justice and accountability for it. We should be demanding that. If we want to do better as a country, we have to be better and we have to demand better. It's something that we keep saying. We need to apply consistent standards across the board, regardless of political party. Especially, we especially have to do that to the political party that, they share the same letter as us. We're all Republicans. Those are the people we should probably apply to the most because they get away with more because we're so forgiving and we're just stuck cheerleading. And I know we get a lot of pushback for that, but it's just the truth. We need to be better at applying consistent standards to everybody across the board if we see something that we believe to be falling short of the America First principles that we want to see. You can't be afraid to call it out. And again, I need to get better at this too. Because I did a similar post yesterday where I was comparing, well, since we're talking about private messaging apps, remember that time Hunter Biden used WhatsApp to basically threaten a Chinese business associate with his father to get $5 million? It's kind of the same thing. I did it too. I do it too. We all do it. But once I saw it for what it was, I couldn't unsee it. And I just kept thinking about it. I was like, this is wrong. And I'm wrong. We need to do better. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Right under the wire here at 12:59. I'm going to get you guys out of here. I'll be right back to read any rants if I have any. I do got a few. So before I go and play the outro video, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. One great thing you guys can do for me too is if you are enjoying the show, any feedback is appreciated on social media or daily@badlandsmedia.org. That's the email. But also sharing this around to people that you think might enjoy it. Bunch of information under an hour. Going to keep getting guests on. I have some really good guests lined up for the future. Hitting the thumbs up and sharing around on social media would be greatly appreciated. It's one of the easiest ways you can support what we're doing here. So I'll be right back to read the rants. Hold tight.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
2, 3. Let's get started.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me?
All right, we got a couple rants. Before I forget, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't heard yet, on April 5th, I just got to find my post now. Where did I put? Okay, here we go. April 5th, from 2 to 4 p.m., if you are in the Nashville area, I would love to meet you. We're going to be doing a Badlander meetup. And if you're not familiar with what our Badlander groups are, we do these conferences all over the country where we get in front of people, we meet people, they're great time. But when we leave there, we encourage people to, hey, start these local little communities where you live and get together with like-minded people. It's so good for the movement, and just it's just so good. The local action stuff, getting together with people in your area. We're going to have a meetup in Nashville, and I'm going to be there because I'm going to be down there for a anniversary party anyway. So from 2 to 4, April 5th, if you're around Nashville, I would love to meet you guys. Come on out. Make sure you RSVP to the email that's on this image. It's on my Twitter. It's all over. But the email is eatmoreplants2thrive@protonmail.com. We don't know how many people will come. We had like 200 some go to the one that we did in Minnesota. If we get numbers like that, we may have to switch venues. So please RSVP. Would greatly appreciate it. And if you're not part of one of those groups and you want to join or whatever, maybe start one of your own in your area, go to badlandsmedia.tv/groups, and there's a little form there. You fill it out. Somebody will be in touch with you with the information for the group in your area, or if there is no group, they can give you some insight and help on maybe starting one yourself. So there you go. Would love to see you guys in Nashville, though. Okay, a couple rants here. Kansas reckoning. Kansas patriots have been working at the state level for 4 years, fighting for our elections. There are so many rhinos in my state that it will take years to fix. We need the hand of God to come down. Well, I appreciate you and all the work you're doing. Eleanor 2000, we need you all to help decipher all the happenings, John. Thank you. Thank you. Anarchy, great show. Also, really enjoyed your discussion with Gabby Cuccia yesterday. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, I think she's going to be a weekly guest. I don't know what day yet, but we're working that out. St. Pete 70, coincidence that Catherine Maher, CEO of NPR in Congress today, is also on the board for Signal. Interesting timing, to say the least. That is interesting. Fat Chance, great job, John. We appreciate all the team does. Thank you. Appreciate that. So good to see you guys at the last Gart. I'm sure I'll see you guys in Deadwood again. I think you said you're not coming to Plymouth, but we'll see you at Deadwood for sure. Old Man T for $17. Thank you. Thanks for keeping us mentally stable. Not near Nashville, anything in central New Jersey. No, and this is something I'm trying to work out for the rest of the years, like my calendar, because I want to attend more of these meetups. And with my week on, week off schedule, with my kids, I can technically do it. I can make it work. Depends on costs and where it is, but I want to get to more of these Badlanders meetups. So I'm going to try to figure out how to get to those in between the Garts and in between everything else I got going on. But I'm going to try to make more of an effort to do it. So just stay tuned, guys. But yeah, that's everything. Hit the thumbs up, share it around, and I think I'm going to send you guys over to. Should I do the raid feature or not? I know some people get upset when we raid other shows, but I think Badlands 9 to 5 is on, so maybe that's what I do. I'm not going to force you to go over there. I'm not going to raid the channel, but I would encourage you, once you sign off of here, go back to the Badlands Media, our Rumble channel, and click on the 9 to 5. They're covering some interesting hearings right now. So catch y'all later.